Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Great parts what? Oh, yeah. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. This is our first mini installment in Geeky Gentleman History Month, the month in which we discuss the contributions that Geeky Gentlemen have made to history, but that have been ignored by biased educational system. I am Sipar2, and joining me today is Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life. Hello, Rasco.
What up?
Yeah, except we don't talk about that at all. We talk about historical things because we're geeky and we like to geek out over history from time to time.
History.
Indeed. So this week we'll be discussing DC Comics Bombshells Volume 1 and 2. But before we get into that, I just want to let you, the listener, know that you can now download episodes of Geeky Gentlemen. There's a link in the description so you can download the audio from this episode and listen on the go. New episodes are posted with their episodes on YouTube, actually slightly before. You can download new episodes with them, and you can also leave comments on old episodes of Geeky Gentlemen. There's a Geeky Gentlemen playlist. Find it, leave a comment saying you want to be able to listen to the audio from that, and download it, listen on the go. I will post the audio, let you know about it, yada yada yada, and stuff. You'll figure it out, I'm sure. Anyway, so Rasco, how did you like DC Comics Bombshells Volume 1 and 2?
I think that there's a lot of really cool ideas, and there's a lot that I actually do like, but I think ultimately, at this point where I'm at, is I don't like not like it, but I'm just kind of lukewarm on it, honestly.
Gotcha. Well, this is an interesting piece, and I think I'm going to be able to point out the problems that you have with it. Too many characters?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's such a weird thing, because generally speaking, when it comes to making a story out of something that did not start as an idea for a story, but just as a neat concept that would be cool to visualize,
yeah,
you are, like, so often you are digging uphill. It's like the G.I. Joe movie was a terrible idea, because G.I. Joe was meant to be cool soldier toys, but then they try to make it into a story. Transformers, I hear good things about the comics, I don't believe them. Terrible idea. You have cool idea for a toy and you try to turn it into a story, it doesn't work. So what DC Comics Bombshells started out as is this guy was, I can't remember the name of the artist, he was doing he was at a convention and he had pictures that he'd done of different characters from different franchises and stuff as in like 40s and 50s style garb.
Like pinup girls and stuff like that? Like you turn them into like pinup girls?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And DC's artistic division saw these at the con, and then they went back to their offices and started dreaming up ideas of cool things to do with their characters in this art style.
Yeah.
And then they passed around the idea back and forth until they finally got back in touch with the original artist and asked him to flagship it by giving them a Wonder Woman design to make statues out of. Mm-hmm. And so you have the DC Bombshells Wonder Woman statue, which is like it's on the cover of one of the first couple issues or something, you know, Wonder Woman breaking the chains, and it's got like She Can Do It in the background and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she looks very Rosie the Riveter kind of aesthetic to her and stuff. And so then that really was a big hit, and so they started producing all these other statues of, different female DC characters in this Bombshell style. And then they did a whole month, I think, of variant covers for different DC books with the Bombshells on the covers. And those were huge sellers. So then they decided, okay, let's do a book. And I guess the major mandate is make sure as many of the characters as you possibly can end up in this. So, while I'll agree that this is certainly overloaded with characters, I think it reads better in collection than it does monthly.
Because that's obviously how I read it. I read it in trade, so definitely I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so I think it reads better in collection because you're more easily able to keep up with all the characters. Like, until I went back and reread this in collection, I could not remember who the Batgirls were by the time we get to their solo issue. But when I saw what's her name with the blue hair in the first issue, that helped.
Yeah, it's really weird because I just actually finished watching the 6th season of Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones is another thing where I feel like it's weird because I've always watched Game of Thrones because I never watched it when with everybody else as the seasons were airing. I watched all the first 5 seasons in just a giant binge, and it played so well that way. And if you ever hear anyone bitch about Game of Thrones, normally the thing they'll say is that you'll go an episode and 30 storylines will advance 60 seconds.
Yeah,
and that's how it felt during some of this. Some of the obviously. They don't. It's not 60 seconds because obviously it's a book. It doesn't allocate time that way. But at some points, because you were jumping around so much, I was just oh my god, this is so much. And it's really weird because it's accidentally dumping tons of stuff for you to keep up with that you're just whoa. And it's also such a strange, I guess, canon. I guess, right?
Yeah, there's some stuff with that. What's also interesting to note is I read this in single issues, but that's not even originally how it came out. It came out where each short section of story with each of these characters, it came out digitally with just, we got the first issue has I think 4 pages of Wonder Woman stuff.
Oh, okay.
That was its own digital release. And then those chunks of story, each 3 chunks or whatever, got put into one issue, and then that was released in single, and then eventually at the end of the first 2 story arcs, it's all collected in trade.
Is it? I now that you said that, I can kind of it's because I don't want to say oh I could tell, but now thinking about it, that seems I totally understand why it kind of feels that way. Going back and reading it, you can kind of feel the sections-ness of it all.
Yeah, and so it's meant to be more of a digital first thing, but I think it reads reasonably well in trade. But yeah, there are a lot of characters, and guess what? You get even more.
Oh boy.
But what I love about it is there's such fucking awesome takes on these characters. I just, when I read this shit, my smile just gets 10 miles wide, dude, and I'm in love with it. It's a concept that just shouldn't work in any regard whatsoever. Not even the whole thing of translating a fun idea to a story, but the fact that it's I don't want to use the word sexist, but it's a reasonably sexualized first take on these characters, because that's what the Bombshells were.
Yeah.
Girls painted on the sides of the planes. That they were overly sexualized because it was a bunch of fucking army guys. They didn't have to care about women's feelings. So there's so much potential for this to go wrong, but yet they hire an out of the closet lesbian writer to do it, and she fucking nails it perfectly. It's so much fun, and the sexiness of all the character designs just works because of how she approaches it.
Yeah, so what I liked about this is it felt like something that should have existed in that time. I could almost see during when pinup girls are a thing, right? we use those. Like, I can almost see a reality where we start making, like, pinup girl superhero comics.
That'd be
and
cool.
Like, I could see an alternate American history where that happened. And that's what I thought that was cool about this, is it felt like something that could have existed, but, like, not retroactively looking back at that era, but, like, it could have actually existed then, but, like, not the way... It wouldn't exist the way it is. It would obviously be a lot less self-aware of what it is if it was pinup girls during, like... What are the actual years in which pinup girls were really a thing? It was probably, like...
40s, 50s.
Yeah, 40s and 50s. So, like, if I could see this existing there, and maybe being a little bit more, I don't want to say sexist, but objectifying the women even more so, and you would explore different things, but it would be, I think this is something that could have actually existed in history. I think that would be, that was one of the coolest things about it to me, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about it, too. It's such a love letter to 40s comics, but but with a socially aware feminist agenda to it. That's what I really, really enjoy about it. It is very, very self-aware of the way women were treated in that era, and at times it plays with that, and at times it completely ignores it, and I don't care at all. So it's like a love letter to 40s and 50s comics, but the way that they should have been. Because there are, like, issues, and it's fucking ridiculous. There's, like, an old issue of one of the original, like, not even Justice League, I think it was JSA at the time, one of the original JSA comics, and it was, like, all the members gathered around the table, but Wonder Woman and Hawkman were standing up, and Hawkman's like, Wonder Woman has graciously volunteered to be the secretary for our team and take notes. And she's like, just doing my part. So... like, that was a real thing from a real comic. And so it's just, like, the most cringe-worthy thing, because honestly, she's the most qualified there. Because she's the only hero that anyone cares about from that group anymore. But, like, so it's a love letter to that time, but it does it in such a way of this is what it should have been. And that's what I really love about it. There's so many things I love about it, so I'm going to be using that phrase a lot.
This is random, how did you specifically feel about Steve Trevor in this?
Best Steve Trevor origin, tied with Wonder Woman Earth 1.
I really liked it too, and can I just say my favorite Steve Trevor line in this was when he goes, and he's talking about, he's like, that's what we do as humans, we really like to, like, assume what we would do from other people's shoes. And then, like, he's like, we write letters saying, like, war isn't the way, but then, and we do other, like, he just, like, I loved that part where he's like, that's one of the things we love to do as humans, is we love to say what we would do if we were someone else, having no idea what it's like to be that other person. That was my favorite line of his. It was great.
Oh, there's tons of just amazing speeches in this book that are just, like, it's not even kind of subtle. And that's one of the things I love about comics, is that are just, subtlety does not exist. Like, Renato Jones, The 1% is another book I'm reading right now that I just love to death. And in the latest issue, which is the end of season 1, there's a guy who is bald and wears turtlenecks and has glasses. And he's talking about how his phones, how the company that he owns makes phones that their software starts to just degrade and be completely useless at a certain point, right as a new product is about to come out, but that's not at all intentional, because that would be unethical, and they're all about ethics at the Plum Corporation. And I just love how subtle that is. I think he might be talking about Apple, but I'm not sure. I don't want to read too much into it, but there's all kinds of stuff like that in this series. And the first 12 issues have plenty of it. It only gets more and more as things go on. They do not at all shy away from comparing Donald Trump to a fascist. Harvey Dent is running for mayor of Gotham in the next next Batgirl story. And he has a big speech about how immigrants are going to come into the country and steal and murder and rape, and how they're going to destroy the country from within and all this other stuff. So it's not at all subtle. And I really like that about it. What was, besides the plethora of characters, what else didn't work for you about it?
I mean, so honestly, the big thing I have to say though is that like the reason I'm saying I feel lukewarm is not, I think I need to read more is what it is. So this, like I said, my other issues kind of stem from the character stuff, which is that like by the end you do jump around so much that like you've yet to fully realize the, I guess, importance of every single story that you're jumping to at this point. It doesn't fully, and this is another thing that Game of Thrones does, which is really weird that I'm comparing this to Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones, sometimes it may feel like you don't understand why things are happening, and they don't feel necessary, but they will, and so I feel like I need to read more, because with certain things, it just feels kind of uneventful.
Yeah, there are a couple things that are set up in these first 12 issues that aren't paid off till after the fact.
Okay.
The Gotham Girls being one of, or I keep saying Gotham Girls. The Batgirls of Gotham.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was kind of jarring too. That was like the first section of, actually, that's probably the better. That's probably actually a smart choice. Actually, never mind.
Yeah, that was a whole issue on its own.
Yeah, to make that the first one. Yeah, actually, no, that bothers me less now that you've told me that. So
yeah, and there's other stuff that gets set up, like Zatanna. She has that big moment where she's able to save everyone, but she's still stuck with the Joker's daughter and John Constantine.
She's awesome.
Zatanna is great, right?
Yeah, she's pretty cool. Damn. She should get a Netflix show.
Oh my god, dude, did you hear my pitch for a Zatanna series at all?
You've probably, I know that you love her, but so go ahead, actually pitch it to me. Go ahead.
Okay. So I want, like, it'd have to be a CW show, which is, I know it's rocky ground, but just hear me out as to why it has to be a CW show. So the very first episode would start out, and we would fake out the audience by making them think that they're watching an episode of Penn and Teller Fool Us. Because if you watch that show, the way they introduce the magicians that are performing is you get just like this little quick video of the magician explaining what they love about magic, and sometimes you'll get some of their background if they've got like a parent or something that got them into magic. So I would have Zatanna talk about how she's the daughter of Zatar, who's like in this world now a very famous magician that no one could ever figure out any of his tricks. And now she is here to fool Penn and Teller. And then I would have her do an act that would be 100% illusion, not magic, and fool Penn and Teller, get the trophy. And then I would have the entire series be about Zatanna in Las Vegas, being a superhero, and also headlining a stage in Vegas.
That'd be awesome.
That would be amazing.
That'd be really cool.
And, like, she'd be fighting demons and stuff, since I think that'd be a good fit for the whole magic thing. Yeah, I love Zatanna in this. Her stuff doesn't start to get paid off until, I want to say, issue 16 or 17. Mira, she does the whole sacrifice thing, and she is kind of put on the sidelines where she meets Irish Aquaman for a couple issues, and then her stuff doesn't start to be paid off till issue 16, 17 again. So there's a lot of that. They do set things up to be paid off later.
So I have a question. Do you ever see any male superheroes in this?
We see Hal Jordan in one issue.
Is he just Hal Jordan, or is he actually a Green Lantern?
He's just Hal Jordan. Okay. Harley Quinn steals his plane.
All right.
It was in these 12 issues.
Oh, wait, never mind. You're right. I don't know why I said that.
We see Hal Jordan. We mention the Waynes in the very beginning of this. We mention that Kathy Kane saves the Waynes.
Yeah.
There's a Bombshells statue of Power Girl and Superman where they're like circus performers and she's lifting him over her head. But no, the closest thing there has been to a male superhero is Killer Croc being on the Suicide Squad. And then you've also had Oswald Cobblepot and Harvey Dent show up.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of actually cool, because if you are a man during this time, you'd be in war, and so, like, so that was one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about it, is that like it did have, is that we are doing the all-female superhero thing, but it feels, that was another thing that made it feel like it could have existed in the 40s or the 50s, is that like, where are all the men? Oh, they're busy fighting war, and then so we have the superheroines, and they're the heroes, but it doesn't like, it was a good built-in explanation for why you would wind up with a team of all female heroes actually at this point, because what I always liked about the 40s and 50s is this idea that like, what is like the purpose of the people that aren't on the front lines? Like, their lives feel less, I guess, I always imagine that it's like, what does it feel like to exist in the 40s and the 50s, but not be on the front lines, I guess? Mm-hmm. And, like, to not be able to contribute to that. And so that was what was cool, because it was like, well, no, see, like, these women, they're superheroes, and so they do affect, these people are at the forefront of this conflict, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I like that they're the ones defending more so than they are going out to directly attack the Nazis.
Yeah.
You know, that you have the whole stuff with Batwoman in Berlin, but a lot of what they're doing, like the first big thing where they're all together is defending Britain. Otherwise we see them just around defending people, you know, saving lives. Wonder Woman kind of is the only one that we get the real sense that she's been in the battlefield.
Yeah. It also makes sense though for her. Yeah.
And by the time we get to issue 16 or 17, they liberate a Jewish ghetto. It's just really interesting to see. I like that they actually go there. One of the you've seen Justice League, right? Mm-hmm. The cartoon show. Yes. There's that two-parter where they go to, or no, three-parter where they go to the 1940s and like Vandal Savage has taken over Germany and is like winning World War II and everything. You ready to have that episode ruined for you?
No.
Why the fuck does no one think to go check to make sure the Holocaust isn't happening?
Well...
That's fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one even questions it. No one brings it up.
Well, it's Justice League. It's understandable.
Yeah. I'm just saying. So I liked this, actually, this is very much about victimized populations. It's about the way women were treated. It's about the way minorities were treated. It's about the way the Jews were treated. I really like that about it. It doesn't, like, so much of the stuff that comes out about the 40s over-idealizes them and makes it seem like there were no problems to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But, we didn't have minority voting rights. We didn't have women's voting rights. We didn't have all these things that we have now because of back in the 40s. So obviously there were problems that we should pay attention to. We shouldn't ignore those things.
Yeah, and I like how all of those things are the people that are being affected by war, but aren't the ones that are actively participating in it necessarily. Mm-hmm. Which is another thing, like I was saying earlier, like, that's what's cool about them all being women superheroes, is that, like, they're people that traditionally wouldn't have been involved in the conflict.
Yeah.
But you can make them the heart of it in a alternate reality, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite take on these on the characters?
Stargirl and Supergirl.
Yeah, you like the Russian Stargirl and Supergirl?
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. I thought that was awesome. That was just... I love seeing that. I love just taking any character and then switching the country of their origin, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I
like
cool.
the way that they incorporated the name Courtney, and they you actually had the whole lettering difference in the way people were saying her name between Courtney and Courtney.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I just like the way that read. It's weird to me to imagine Supergirl with a Russian accent. But I still like it.
Yeah, it's weird, but I see it and it works for me. Like, it's weird, but I can totally see it now, and like I think it's really cool. I also, again, you said like earlier, subtlety in comics. thrown out the window. But I do love the ending, just with Stargirls in the stars. It's cool.
It's fucking heart-wrenching, man. Like, there are a lot of moments that, as much fun as this book is at times, there are moments where I really, like, I feel it pull on my heartstrings. In that, it's either the first or second issue, when she leaves Gotham, and her partner is left in the apartment that they share all on her own, and she's like, do whatever you have to do, just make sure you come home. It's like the most cliche thing of seeing someone off to war, but it just fucking sells it. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was really well done. There's a lot of stuff like that in this book. I hate to spoil it for you, but I gotta talk about something that happens toward the end of the next story arc after this.
Go right ahead.
They're defending a Jewish ghetto, and like their plan is spoiled, so they're actually in a trap. And they're just about, like, they're really just fighting to the last man, basically, is what it's going to come down to, or last woman in this case. And, the entire ghetto is being shelled and everything. And you have one Jewish girl who's been talking to Batwoman the whole issue. She's in the basement reading from the Torah about the great stories of Jewish women, of Jewish heroes. And as the bombing's going on, she keeps saying the names of these women from Jewish mythology, and she's so nervous and everyone's so scared that she just keeps saying them quicker and quicker and quicker. And it's so subtly introduced, but each name starts with each name is said and starts with a certain, is said in a sequence, and each name starts with a certain letter. So that she is actually saying, by the end, she is saying it so fast that it just comes out as Shazam. And then she turns into Mary Marvel. And it was so fucking awesome.
That's so fucking cool.
It's the most, like, impactful thing. Like, it's hugely tense, very emotional scene. And then it just ends in the coolest possible way. And so, once again, comic books are not for subtlety. You can do it, but it's hard for me to say you're not doing it wrong.
That's so weird, because that's hilarious, because that is another thing that parallels us with Game of Thrones. There was a very similar Game of Thrones moment, like what you just explained, where a character, like, there's a character named Hodor. No one knows why he's named Hodor. Then you learn it's the phrase "hold the door," but like repeated really fast until you mispronounce it as "hold the door," Hodor, and then eventually it becomes that. And that reminded me of that exactly.
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy how that all works out. And there's so much emotion built into this, and that's what I really love about it. Yeah, I agree. The plethora of characters does get hard to keep up with. They just introduced Vixen at the end of the most recent issue. So we're not anywhere close to there being fewer, to getting all the characters out there. I'm waiting to see Hawkgirl, because her Bombshell statue, she just has a jetpack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Rocketeer look.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm visualizing this. That's actually awesome. So what is your favorite design of any of the characters?
That's a really hard question to answer. I think, like, I'm torn between Batwoman and Wonder Woman. I think I'm going to go with Batwoman. Like, I really like Wonder Woman, the whole Rosie the Riveter look, the fact that the bandana is the tiara. I really like that. But I go with Batwoman because of how she's used, and the fact that they, like, not only let the idea of baseball player Batwoman thing play itself up, but they go so far as to put it in the damn book with that last issue, where she uses Stargirl's staff to gather all the bats, pull a Frank Miller Year One, and she goes, "I fucking love homonyms." Like, it's just so fucking funny. And I just really like that design. It's got the obligatory number 52 on the back of the jersey. I can't not love it. It's that, and I just like skirts. I just have a obsession with skirts. Female superheroes wearing skirts is something I love. Yes, my ideal Wonder Woman costume choice, Wonder Woman with a skirt. I really like when female superhero characters wear skirts.
I really liked Stargirl's costume. I thought that the goggles were so fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my pick, I guess.
Yeah. But like all the character designs are just really, really clever. You should see you should just look up the statues sometime.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the Stargirl one right now, actually.
Yeah, that and like the parachuting Batgirl statue is really cool. There's like Halloween variants and stuff. There's a Christmas variant. I will say the character design I like the least is Harley Quinn.
I'd probably
because, well, my problem with it is it's fairly basic Harley Quinn. Like they did an issue of the main Harley, or one of the just mainline continuity Harley Quinn books.
Yeah.
They did an issue of that where she crossed over with Bombshells, and it's like this kooky, crazy thing that isn't in continuity with Bombshells. And it's just, she meets the Harley Quinn of the Bombshells universe, and aside from the fact that mainline DC Harley Quinn now has white skin like the Joker, and the whole red and black hair, they look more or less identical.
Yeah.
There's nothing 40s about Bombshells Harley Quinn, and that's what bothers me. It just looks too much like her modern costume.
Yeah. And it's weird because, like... the more we change Harley Quinn, the more she actually looks like her Bombshells counterpart, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, it's weird.
Well, I mean, it's just that's how we've been drawing Harley Quinn over the last couple of years, ever since Lee Bermejo and Brian Azzarello's Joker book. That was the first one to do the idea of a corset and more of a pigtail look than a court jester. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, that's just been what it's moving toward, is more corsets and fishnets and stuff like that than to do just a legit court jester. And so what the Bombshells thing, it would have looked better if they did something more traditional. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's story doesn't pick up again until all the characters start meeting back up for the Jewish ghetto thing.
Oh, okay.
I do like Poison Ivy's hair, because it's got like curls like a rose.
Yeah.
Like that kind of haircut. I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, the character designs are really, really clever for the most part. I think Harley Quinn's the odd one out. I don't know, what's a design you didn't care for or something?
Well, now that you've made your argument, I think that's objectively the correct answer. It is probably Harley Quinn, actually. Like, I think that's like just the correct answer to that question, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of iffy on Catwoman.
Yeah.
Just because it just kind of looks like Audrey Hepburn. Like, Haley has an Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's Barbie, and I see it all the time, and now when I read Bombshells, I'm imagining Catwoman played by Audrey Hepburn.
You're right. I do like the Cruella de Vil cigarette.
Yeah, it looks a little too much like that, so it's not Catwoman-y enough.
My favorite part was when Zatanna takes a drag off his cigarette, and of Constantine's cigarette, and she can tell it's like English tobacco.
Uh-huh.
That was
it's right out of Tarantino, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was awesome.
No, I just felt very Tarantino, like the whole tension in the bar and Glorious Bastards. Yeah.
Cigarettes they're sexy.
Mm-hmm. And just to see characters smoking in a comic again.
Yes. Thank God. Yeah, you know what? Like, I really like when characters smoke, just because it always makes every scene look like artsy, because there's like smoke everywhere. That's really like, I'm serious. Like, that's a cool thing. Smoke just makes things look cool. I'm for it.
Maybe you should go smoke, Rasco.
We need to get cigarettes in the hands of every kid.
Yeah. It's not related to anything, but there's that scene there's a couple scenes actually in Avatar where Sigourney Weaver smokes a cigarette.
Yeah.
And anti-smoking groups got really, really mad about that because it's supposed to be thousands of years in the future, and yet people are still smoking.
Well, life will still suck just as much then. You gotta get your intoxicants somehow, right?
Yeah, I thought that was really funny that was what people complained about with Avatar.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff to talk about with this book. I want to go for just a couple more minutes. So your main complaint was the character stuff. I think I have agreed with you. That's been my most consistent problem, is trying to put as many characters in here as possible. But at the same time, I want more.
Yeah, it's kind of like this book what kind of is selling it for me is like just getting to see all of the different characters. So at the same time, while it may be overbearing, in the long run, it is probably actually a smarter idea. Because that's another thing about this time period in particular, is that it is so, it's such a global conflict, right? So it kind of makes sense that you would be jumping around this much. So they make it work within, the structure of the narrative and with the premise. So I'm complaining about that less and less now that we've actually talked about it. Yeah,
it's just I think an initial hurdle, but once you're over it, you're over it. At the same time, I still want more. I really want Arisia to show up in this. She's the Green Lantern, blonde, short hair, usually got spiky ears or something, wears a green skirt most of the time. I really want her to show up. I really want Green Lantern to get some love in this. There's all kinds of stuff, I just want to see more from this. And what I think it is, why we feel character overload, is because I really cannot name another ongoing series where a writer just got their own universe, their own version of the DC universe to play around with very little mandates, except for use all of these characters. Anything else, and I don't think it would sell, but anything else, this would just be an alternate continuity, the Ultimate Marvelverse. What you're really reading when you're reading this book is, what if one writer got to do the entire Ultimate Marvelverse, but instead of spreading it out over multiple books, they had to do it all in one issue a month.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so, not crazy, but that's why there's a lot of shit going on in this book.
Well, it's interesting. We'll get to see actually some other, Max Landis, he has plenty of ideas for other characters in his American Alien verse, I guess. That would be cool to see some of those other things. That's the only thing I can that's kind of comparative. That's only one character.
Primarily Superman, right? He's not playing around every single issue with multiple characters all at once. It's a Superman book where he gets to play around in his own DC universe. This is a DC universe book, not any. It's not about any one central character. It's as if we're getting different peeks into the books from an alternate universe.
Do you know what? I think that this show could work really well as an animated Netflix show.
I would love for DC to make these first 2 volumes into their next animated feature.
Actually, that's even better. Actually, you're right. That would be really cool.
Because I think there's just enough material here that if you cut out just a couple of things, you can cut out the Batgirls of Gotham.
Yeah.
Since they're the most tangentially related. And then, if need be, you could do them later in the sequel or whatever. You can cut out just maybe 1 or 2 of the storylines. I don't know which one in particular, because they're all pretty well interconnected with the Tenebar. Oh, let's talk about that, because we haven't mentioned them at all. What do you think of the villain here?
Iffy. I don't know.
I kind of like it because one of the things about the old propaganda era of comics, which is another thing I want to talk about, don't let me leave without talking about propaganda comics. With the propaganda era of comics, they talked about how Superman could end the war in a day.
Yeah.
There was, in fact, before World War II kicked off, and there was just the shit going on in Poland, There's a really, really old comic strip where Superman, not even a book, just a strip in a single newspaper to show you how easy a problem this would be for Superman to solve, where Superman just went and grabbed Hitler and Stalin and brought them before the World Court. That was it. That was the entire comic strip. So in the propaganda era of comics, they talk about how they didn't want to write these characters going to try to solve the problems because that would be too insulting to the troops. So what I like that this does with it is it puts, as far as a supernatural or fantasy world, whatever you want to call it, fantasy high science world, it puts the Axis and the Allies on relatively equal playing field as far as resources. Because the Allies have all the superheroes, but the Axis has, it's as if the whole Hitler going into the desert researching the occult had actually paid off.
Yeah.
So I like that it puts them on equal playing field, or not equal, but it gives them like a challenge so that the Allied forces have something for the crazy comic book supernatural things to go up against. And that's why I like the way the Tenebrar are used, but also like that the Nazis gamble and lose with them, because you have that moment in the Nazi camp where in the camp where the Nazis are being held prisoner, where they kill one of the guys for complaining, and then he gets up as a zombie basically, and he's like, the Reich would get the world, but the Tenebrar would get your dead. And then he starts killing other members of the party. Do you see the problem with your bargain? I really like that. That's
cool.
really smart writing to me.
That's awesome. You're right.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
I think that was really clever. I like the way the Tenebrar are written as just like this ultimate threat that the Nazis played with, and now we have to defeat the Nazis and the Tenebrar at the same time. I thought that was a really cool idea.
It should have been Cthulhu.
That's just my answer for everything, though.
That actually would be pretty cool, though. Like, it was... I was getting some Cthulhu stuff. Just in the vibe, right? Like, just the vibe.
Yeah.
I feel it. It could work. It could work really well. Let's make that, yes. We're moving to Cthulhu now.
Okay.
Crossover. That'd be awesome.
Nice.
That'd be really cool. We didn't talk about the art, though.
Oh, go for it.
Some of it very much like, some of it not very much like.
It's weird. You got Margaret Bennett, and then it's another Margaret that's the main artist on the title.
Yeah.
I've got to look that up. Hold on. E-N-N-E-T-T-E. I think that's how you spell it. Marguerite Bennett. And what's the other writer? Or what's the other artist? It's going to drive me crazy. I'm not going to be able to find it.
Dang it, I don't have the book next.
Damn it. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Haley, hand me the comics on the table over there. Never mind. Fuck it. God damn it. Shit.
Danny's fault. He's judging you.
Yeah. Margaret Bennett and Margaret Sauvage, Sauvage. Yeah, she's the main artist in the first couple issues, and then she comes back periodically throughout it. But then you have other writers like, I think it's the last 2 issues I love the most on the story. Andolfo, he's got a lot of really round faces that I do not like. Like, you look at the last couple issues and, like, all the characters kind of look the same. They have a very rounded face.
Oh my god, you're so right. I was going to say, I didn't like, in the beginning Batgirl stuff, the art there, it was...
You mean Batwoman, not Batgirl.
Yeah, Batwoman, I'm sorry. It's insulting of me to call her a girl. She's a woman. That's one of my least favorite art in the book.
Really? So you don't like the Savage art? Interesting, because her stuff is the stuff I like the most. I don't like when we switch over. Because her stuff looks a lot like how, at least to me, looks a lot like how art was done in that kind of Norman Rockwell style back in that era.
Yeah, you're right, and that's cool. It's just not my thing.
Gotcha, because I'm just flipping through the first issue since I went and grabbed it, and there's like the whole plane fight with Steve Trevor and everything before the Amazons show up.
Yeah.
And like there are 2 panels of Steve Trevor and I think it's supposed to be a Nazi pilot, and they both have that like quintessential image of the beads of sweat dripping down their face that like was very popular in old school comics. So there's just all kinds of stuff like that. That's what I like about the art. But when you get to this stuff that in like issue 12, it stops being that and it starts to look just kind of like more modern comic art. So what issues, like what story arcs did you like the art in then?
So hold on a second. Now I'm thinking about Zatanna. That was beautiful. Okay. Everything with Supergirl and Stargirl, and especially when they were wearing it was doing kind of like the Russian propaganda, like spelling with the words backwards and stuff like that. That's not propaganda, but like that, I love that. I thought that was cool. But like all of that looked beautiful, and it was really just that initial thing with Batgirl or Batwoman. Does anything else ever look like that again in the book?
Yeah, I mean oh wait, no, Savage drops from the book? What the shit?
Look right at, like, just, it was weird. It didn't look like anything else, because I remember distinctly everything else I liked a lot better than specifically the stuff with Batwoman.
Gotcha. No, I mean, it looks like they change artists right away again. They're probably just rushing to get it done, so they keep changing artists between each issue. Or each story, who knows. But yeah, it looks like they just switch artists over and over again. Anyway, I fucking love when we get a look at Joker's daughter's teeth.
Yeah, something about that messes me up. Just really creepy, like meth teeth.
Since we're talking about the Zatanna stuff, and it's something that happens a lot throughout the series. Like, even I was reading the Wonder Woman 75th anniversary special, and they do this really cool splash page of Wonder Woman and a bunch of panels of her doing stuff from Bombshells, but they have a song about Wonder Woman. And there's a lot of fucking songs in this series. How do you feel about music in comics?
I kind of don't like it, I'll be honest.
I agree. I don't think it works very often.
It works in Scott Pilgrim.
Really?
That's what I'll say. Works in Scott Pilgrim. Haven't seen it work in anything else on it.
Well, like, Alan Moore tried to do it a lot. It's in, Killing Joke. It's in V for Vendetta. It shows up quite often when a writer will try to do it. I only think it works when it's very, very brief. When it's, like, very, very brief and it's a song that is already recognizable. I don't think it works when it's an original song, but at the same time, I've got I'm hearing it in my head as I'm reading this, so it's definitely done well because it's not enough to be a problem, but I still don't think it works.
Okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. Actually, doesn't the first bit of... didn't that happen earlier? Like, that happens with, like, Steve Trevor in the beginning or something, right? Like, wasn't there...
Wonder Woman sings to Steve Trevor, Mira sings, and I think every time we see her, Mira's singing a song. It's all over the place, the singing in this series. It happens more times than I can tell you.
You thought it.
So, yeah, I guess it's just something she likes doing.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to make sure I talked about was the idea of propaganda comics, because I talked about this a little bit, like this feels like it was from that era, but how it should have been. And I guess the best place to start with this, because I want to talk about Frank Miller and his whole thing with propaganda comics, but I think the best place to start with this is to talk about Jack Kirby and Black Panther. So Jack Kirby, famous name in comic books, he created Black Panther, but he did so for a very specific reason, because keep in mind Jack Kirby was Jewish. When he was originally writing comics in the 40s, he was very much broke. He was never rich his whole life, but he was very much broke in the 40s. And the only way he could make a buck was to draw whatever they told him to draw. And he was, because of that, essentially forced to depict people of different races in very disgusting, distasteful ways. Particularly black people as cowardly, but if you look back at propaganda comics from that era, you can see Japanese people are dirty rats, all these other kinds of things. And so, because of having to portray other, oppressed peoples in such a demeaning way, Jack Kirby always felt really guilty about that, so he created Black Panther as an apology.
Apology accepted.
Yeah, because Black Panther's awesome. And then you have Frank Miller, who, very famous from Dark Knight Returns, wrote an awful sequel called Dark Knight Strikes Again. And then shortly after Dark Knight Strikes Again came out, 9/11 happened. And Frank Miller, as a lifelong New York City resident, really, really felt emotionally impacted by 9/11. And so several years later, he wanted to release what was meant to be the third part of the Dark Knight sequel, and and DC wouldn't let him put Batman on it because they found it so disgusting. It was called Holy Terror. And Frank Miller talks about this book as being his love letter to the era of propaganda comics from the 40s and 50s. And so it was a modern version of that, and it was supposed to be Batman going to go beat up, terrorists.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and you can read it. It's pretty much just Dark Knight Returns Batman minus the ears. It's kind of disgusting because it conflates Muslim with terrorist is the problem. So that's what, and he'll say, I wanted to capture the essence of propaganda comics and what made them great. But I feel like he tried to do that in exactly the wrong way. And I feel like this captures the era of propaganda comics in exactly the right way.
Yeah.
Because you get that feel without being horrible to someone.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I really want to check that out.
Holy Terror? Go for it. Let me know how it turns out. I've only seen pages. I kind of refuse to read it, even as pirated, because I don't want to see that. But yeah, so that's kind of the one thing I wanted to talk about. This does the idea of capturing the part of what made that era of superhero comics great, but doesn't embrace the disgusting racism that was part of what they were built on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I really like about this, because it was such a weird thing in the 40s. I'm trying to remember, wasn't Himmler, or maybe it was one of the top aides to Hitler. He was the commander of the Luftwaffe. Was one of the few high-ranking Nazis that was captured, and they actually put him on trial at Nuremberg and everything, and they charged him with Nazi war crimes. And he talked about, well, yeah, we had concentration camps, but so did the Allies, so how can you charge us with war crimes if you don't charge the Allies? Because he was referring to, Japanese internment camps. This book is able to, by focusing on women, by focusing on like lesbians it was still illegal to be a lesbian in America, by focusing on Zatanna, making her a Romani Jew.
That was
what?
That's just really cool.
Yeah, I love it. They do all these things to focus on particularly victimized populations of the 40s and have them still fighting against the Nazis. So you have this idea of, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to be very particular in how I phrase this. The truly innocent doing the truly right and truly fighting for propaganda that I think people should be able to get behind. I don't think there's an argument against the idea of propaganda against hatred and discrimination. Because while they are fighting the Nazis, that they've got it, like they make very frequent mention that they're fighting, similar battles at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that about it. So yeah, this is propaganda. This is an homage to propaganda era comics done right, unlike Frank Miller.
Shame on you, Frank.
And shame on Frank Miller for writing anymore. I don't know what the fuck happened to him, but goddamn.
I like crazy people. Don't worry.
Yeah. I like crazy people. Quote of the video. Okay. I'm about done, Rasco. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up about this?
No, I think I'm pretty much good.
Yeah, okay. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to ratings then. I'm going to give DC Comics Bombshells Volume 1 and 2... I'm tempted to take points off for things that we've discussed, but I just love it too much that I cannot help myself. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. John Constantine getting turned into a rabbit.
All right. I think I'm going to go with a 3.5 out of 5. Sexy drags off of a smoky cigarette.
Okay, cool. Rasco, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Oh my god, I just thought of something. Okay, so next week, we're talking about a legendary film.
Oh god.
We're talking about Kruger, the Legend of Scotland! No, we're talking about Braveheart.
You're fucking in love with that.
I know, it just made... I just realized the reason that I keep saying that is because I keep conflating Braveheart and Freddy Krueger together into one thing. And now I realize that, that's why I've been doing it. And so I just, realized earlier when I picked Braveheart that, just now is when I realized I picked Braveheart because I've been saying that Freddy Krueger thing over and over again.
You're ridiculous. Oh, okay. So we're going to be talking about Braveheart next week. That should be fun. Everyone, please join us for that. Please join us for other episodes of Geeky Gentleman History Month. I hope you will be there. I hope you'll enjoy, and I hope we don't get too damn political on you. That's impossible. Anyway, until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Walrus.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.